Hi guys, welcome back to the Scrap Zone. I'm Julie. In this video, I will share with you my layouts for week number 12 and 13. So we're at the end of our sketches for the month of March, and I'm going to be doing this one right here. But we actually have 5 weeks in the month of March. So I'm going to kind of cut my papers here, and I'm going to position this one right underneath, and I'm going to put this one together as per the sketch. So I'm going to put my 6x4, and then I'm just going to repeat the same thing on the other page. So all of those pieces were cut exactly the same. And then I'm going to add here some 4x3 photos, and I'm going to call it good. So it was actually really easy to mimic this page, and it's going to work perfectly because it's going to go inside my book, and it's kind of doing a double page layout if you want. So let's start putting this together. I'm going to ink distress all of the cut pieces, so the cardstock and the pattern paper, and I'm just going to start putting my pieces down. You'll notice that I switched between liquid glue and just double-sided tape runners, and I guess I just do that because it's whatever's closest to my hand at the time that I'm doing the video. But I do like the liquid glue because you can actually manipulate your piece just a tiny bit, and then you just kind of make sure that everything is nice and flush. So that's why you'll see me going between the two. I don't like putting liquid glue on my photos. That is something that I don't do. I usually just use the tape runner for those. For one, if I want to lift the photo, it's easier to lift, and the second reason why is that I find that it doesn't leave any indentation in the actual photo itself. So this layout is pretty much done. I'm going to cut my little numbers here for my week, and I did go ahead and I stamp this using the fern ink. I like how that color picks up on the trees in my photos. And this paper collection was actually a baby theme paper collection, but you can see that I've used it throughout the month, and no baby in sight. So I really liked that I was able to use the beautiful colors in the paper collection, but not the theme of the paper collection. So I'm just going to kind of wiggle these in place. I like to sneak them under the photo mat. And I'm going to continue on here with week number 13. So as you can see, it was my birthday, and it happened on Sunday, so I was able to kind of film the video for week 12 and 13. This was my second COVID birthday, and honestly, I didn't want to spend it on Zoom this year, so my bestie whisked me away and we rented a cottage and just kind of escape, I guess, reality for a couple of days, and it was really, really nice. So thank you for that. And I came back home rejuvenated and not spending so much time on the computer. So let's get back to this layout here. So you can see from that picture that I'm having a good time, but that water bottle in the back, I don't like it so much. So don't be afraid to add embellishments on top of your pictures if you want to hide something from the background. Now, I guess I could have removed it digitally, but this was actually a leftover Picture My Life card, and the saying was, I think, kind of perfect. It kind of sums up me in a nutshell. I just forget to grow up sometimes. So let's put this layout together and just pop that picture right on this page. I'm going to add my little week, which is week 13. And in that original layout, you'll see that there's a title at the bottom. So I was pulling out a few embellishments, and when I pulled out these wooden hearts, I picked out this bag here. And it's got a whole bunch of nice little titles. So I kind of went through that, and I'm like, oh, I like that. Wish. I wish COVID was over. And then it's like, oh, well, there's a happy birthday. I like that too. So I ended up not thinking so much of COVID, but just, it was a very happy birthday. So I'm going to use that one right there. I'm going to add a few of those little wooden hearts just to embellish my page. I am doing that visual triangle, but I'm doing it across the 2 pages because it is a double page layout. So let's stick that picture down, And we're just going to add a few of those embellishments, and I'm just using liquid glue because it's a lot easier. You can sneak them right underneath the photo mat, and then you can glue all of those pieces with glue and they just stick down really, really nicely. So I hope that you're enjoying this project, and I hope you're still playing along with me. I know that the weeks are going by actually kind of quickly. So we've gone through January, February, March already, so 3 months out of the way, and I'm still looking forward to the month of April. I did think that spring was going to come a little early, but as you can see, it's still quite cold and there's still quite a bit of snow up here. So it is going to melt quite fast, but not fast enough for my birthday. But that was okay. It was a great couple of days away from all of the craziness that's going on in the world. So I'm going to add a few of these little embellishments here, and I'm just adding those little enamel dots, and I'm going to stick that little one right down here. And just like that, we're done the month of March. So this is week number 12 and number 13. If you're following along, you know that I like to add a half page in between each month. But because we are running into 5 weeks with the month of March, we're running into April, I can't really put my divider right at the end. You can see that I've moved it already. I'm just going to show you here. So if I pull this back, and I've got my 5 weeks for the month of March, if I put it in the middle, I'm not really dividing my month of March. And then if I put it at the end, what do I do for the next month? So I decided, you know what, I am just going to make my divider the full back page using the months of the year stamp set. So as you can see here, I've gone ahead and I've just printed this on cardstock, and I'm just going to pop it right on the back of that last layout. And I think it's going to work out just fine. So I usually just print it on regular paper, and I've done a square, which is 6 by 8, and then I tack this down usually with like washi tape, and I make sure to remove that frame that I was pointing to because it's going to print on your finished cardstock and you don't want that. So I'm going to try and mimic this, but I find that because I'm using a full page, I'm going to flip the design, if you want, to the bottom. So I'm going to add the month of March at the bottom of this page. But first I'm going to add my background stamp. Like every other page, I really like to kind of repeat a few elements so that you've got a continuity going across your book. So I've just stamped this, and then I'm going to add a little bit of distressing because I've done that on the half pages. So I'm just going to quickly distress the entire page all around, and I'm going to add a few of those little corners from that stamp set that I can't remember the name right now. I think it's called Stroke of an Artist, something like that. I should know it because I've been using it for the last 3 months. Anyways, I'm going to stamp that, and I'm going to start gluing my pieces down. Now, I thought that I had left myself enough space, and you'll see what I mean in a minute right here. This was like 1 inch wide, my first piece, and I'm just going to tuck that right beside the words or the journaling that I have. So I'm just going to sneak that right there, right beside it. And then I'm just going to double check to make sure I'm giving myself enough room for my stamp. And it's perfect the way it is. So if I add to it, I'm going to not leave myself enough space. So I'm just going to add these 2 pieces right on top. So in hindsight, I guess I could have cut that piece smaller, the first gray piece, but it's okay. We're using scraps, right? So I'm going to add all of my pieces down, and then I'm going to stamp the word March using fern ink. And you can see that there's just enough space right there. So this stamp set here doesn't really have those words that I'm looking for because the season here is not, here comes the sun and spring is here. As you can tell from my picture, there's still a lot of snow. So I decided just to stamp this image, and I'm just going to color it in. I'm going to coax spring to come early. I did go ahead and I colored those little swatches if you want. It's just a printable sheet, but I've actually colored them in with my markers, and I find this an absolute time saver. I can put it right beside my paper, and then I can pull the markers that I'm using, and I'm not constantly changing colors because I can actually see the final result. So it took me a little bit to do it, but I really do think that it's worth it. So here I'm just coloring this in, and I'm not being really fussy about it. I did speed up this quite a bit. I wish I could color this quickly. So I'm adding just the dull green on the leaves and just adding a tiny bit of shadowing. I find that this image is kind of like flat, so I wasn't too worried about putting too much shadow, but just a little bit. I'm going to add a little bit of that peach color that kind of goes with the color scheme that I've been working with all month long. And those little swatches that I did are really, really great. I'm telling you, I just put that piece of paper beside my pattern paper, and then I just pick my colors and away I go. So we're going to quickly finish coloring these in, and then I'm just going to fussy cut this and add it to my page. So I'm just going to finish with the trimming of this piece. If you know me, I'm not a fan of fussy cutting, but definitely I can manage it with the micro tip scissors. They are quite good. So I did fussy cut that image, and I'm kind of happy with the result. I'm going to pull in a couple of those little wooden hearts, and I really like the way that this turned out. Even though it's a full page, it's still going to give a separation between the months, and it allows me to add my journaling. So basically I just journal about current event, what the family is doing, like each one of us, what are we binge watching and watching on TV, and I'm also tracking steps this year. Why not? So I've been tracking the walks that I've been doing with my husband, and we'll see how far we get. So that's just a little something constant that I do track every month. So we're going to pop that right in the back, just like that. And we're done the month of March. And I think that it looks quite nice, and it gives it a nice break between the month of March, and we're going to continue on with the month of April. So watch for that next video. I'm going to start collecting some scraps and seeing what we can use for the month of April. So here are the finished pages for the month of March. And as always, thank you so much for hanging out with me today, and don't forget to take pictures.